of Super Pets. So, the Warners are bringing the DC universe to theatrical animation, huh? And without any Legos either? Well, this is about to get interesting. I know that in recent years, Warner Animation Group's attempts of turning their legendary IPs into animated features have been a little bit weak. Okay, not a little bit, they're just weak. Actually, I take that back, they absolutely suck. But when we add DC into the equation, now they can get the opportunity to redeem themselves and have loads of potential material to prove that they can make solid movies with Warner Brothers' vast IP collection. It also helps that DC has a very good track record when it comes to their animated content, whether it be features, series, or whatever they have on streaming. I even find that the works that they put on the big screen are pretty solid. Like Teen Titans Go to the Movies is actually a fun watch, and the Lego Batman movie is possibly WAG's best film yet. Bold statement, especially when compared to the original Lego movie, I know, but I think it really is that great. And out of all the characters and teams in DC's massive roster, they decided that their heroes are going to be not the Justice League themselves, but their lesser-known animal companions, which seems like a suitable fit for an animated family film. All that's left to do is just hope the movie doesn't end up like the previous times and become as fun as its concept sounds. So now that it's the animals' turn to save the day, will they present why they are called Super Pets? Or should they be referred to as the Legion of Doom for what they've done to this movie? Let's find out. The story. Admittedly, before going in, I was a bit worried that this would be Warner Brothers' ripoff of Illumination's The Secret Life of Pets. I mean, it's an animated family film with a prominent theme of pets, starring a dog who gets upset that someone's taking their owner's attention away from them, but then learns to cooperate with other pets so that they could be reunited with the person, and features an all-star cast, including Kevin Hart taking one of the lead roles.
How much did you have to drink?
I had 2 toilet bowls and a bidet. Bidet too, which is crazy. I didn't even know that was a thing, but it's like a dog water fountain.
Initially, it was hard not to make any of those comparisons. However, upon seeing the whole thing, I was surprised that it did manage to find its own identity. While there still may be a few noticeable parallels, it does focus a lot more on the superhero genre and playing around with the DC universe in order to completely differentiate itself and present its own creativity. Okay, at least that's one worry that I could put to rest. But with that said, what about the movie itself? Can the Super Pets still provide an immersive story? Well, to be very honest, I'm sure there is a way, but this is not it. In the film, Superman and Krypto are established as lifelong friends. Suddenly, after they had a fight because Clark is more focused on Lois Lane, the Cape Crusader gets kidnapped and Krypto loses his powers. But now, with the help of some ragtag yet-to-be-adopted animals that suddenly gain their own superpowers, the new team sets out to save the entire Justice League and stop the wrath of an evil guinea pig named Lulu. Just by describing this short synopsis alone, the issues with the story are pretty clear. Right off the bat, this is a very foreseeable feature. The kind that it's very easy to guess what the outcome would be whenever they introduce a character and what they want in life, as well as any time they try to foreshadow something that would obviously show up in the climax. This is because the writing seems to want to make their intentions transparent so that anyone watching this can understand what's happening. But it does so to a fault where it's incapable of providing any surprises, resulting in the storytelling to feel a little tiring because it's telling the audience something that they've already figured out an hour ago.
Or maybe me freezing like this is the worst thing!
As for how it adapts the elements from the DC universe, the movie keeps it mostly standard, which is fine to avoid messing with any formula that fans very much cherish. Sure, there's a slight alteration so that Krypto can play a more significant role, but the rest is assured to be the same world and the same heroes that everyone knows and loves. But when it does have a unique twist with the pre-existing lore like the different colored kryptonite and how the animals got their powers, I'd honestly say that it's kind of ridiculous, even by DC standards. Without spoiling anything, it can be a little too convenient for this picture, if you get what I mean. However, as an animated family film, this one is a lot more of a comedy than most other DC films out there. And while lighthearted humor and DC can easily work together, this one I find to be not good at it. I won't say that I never laughed at all while watching it. There were a few times that it caught me off guard with something that was actually hilarious, but most of the jokes are unimpressively subpar. Maybe not cringy that worsens the experience, but it's rare when a gag can feel anywhere in the levels of amusing.
Excellent shielding. That seemed incredibly painful.
Anybody want to switch powers?
Now, I know I'm acting a bit like Lex Luthor with the way that I'm treating this movie. I mean, why be this critical when this is just a kid's movie? And you know what? That's actually a very good point. If there is one thing to remember about this entire movie, is that this is the kind of feature whose main target audience is children, and possibly only children. In that regard, it suddenly makes a lot more sense to why the story is so predictable. It is crafted in a way that even the smallest viewers could understand. Sure, this wouldn't change my opinion that I find the writing to be subpar, but it does make sense when it is primarily written not for someone like me, but for the little ones to enjoy talking animals with superpowers. On a side note, even with all of its narrative problems, I actually do like how it has a good balance of action and heart. It supplies a solid amount of entertaining action that can help audiences get continuously engaged, and has some nice tender moments with its theme of friendship and what it means to be a pet. And with those themes that sweeten the mood when it gets calm, there is a genuine sense that the characters do care for one another, and it actually aids with wanting to see a happy ending from this. Do I think the movie has good writing? Honestly, no. It's a very basic super team story with a moral about friendship. But while I personally didn't get into it, I can't imagine how kids would want to follow along with the adventure. The animation. What's interesting to note about this movie is that the animation is supplied by Animalogic, the same studio that previously collaborated with Warner Brothers on Happy Feet, Legend of the Guardians, and the Lego movies. I mention this because Super Pets is a lot more different than their previous animated achievements. For this film, they're going beyond the realms of hyperrealism of their past works and experiment with something that's a bit more cartoony, like sprinkling in a bit of Looney Tunes to spice up this version of DC. One element that stands out the most is the designs, where the animators took inspiration from the style of the Art Deco period to make the shape of the characters more prominent, which gives them both a good look that is appealingly stylistic and work well in 3 dimensions where the shapes show off their symmetry. The only catch to the designs is with the Justice League themselves. Considering how iconic these heroes are, their new look here has some mixed results. Some like Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and the Flash are fine by sticking to their traditional look, but others like Cyborg, Aquaman, and Batman can be questionable with some of their, updated aesthetics. What the heck?
That can't be sanitary.
But if there is one thing that the style makes the most out of, it's with the backgrounds. While mostly set in Metropolis and a little bit in Krypton at the beginning, the movie does make the most with presenting the place as a large and thriving city, with several towering buildings that blend minimalism, abstract, and modernism to give out this similar sense of New York City, and filling it with several DC references scattered around as billboards and advertisements. But what could possibly be the best part of the animation and of the whole feature is the action scenes. As I've said before, they do a great job with keeping audiences engaged with the picture. This is thanks to the grand use of special effects that takes advantage of all the pets' different abilities, especially with Krypto, who shares a lot of Superman's powers and prominently uses them all in battles. Not to mention how it greatly uses Metropolis's grand scale to make the fights feel big, and how even the smallest animals can cause the biggest damage.
We're stronger than you think.
But one criticism I do have with the visuals is the character animation and how they move. I don't know if it's just me, but their movements don't feel as smooth as they probably should be. Kind of like they're a bit clunky at times. This is not to blame the team at Animal Logic. I'm sure they did the best they could with what they have, and I get what they wanted to do with the pets. In fact, I find that they nicely blended the realistic animal nature with the cartoony personalities. And yet, I feel like they didn't use their best rendering systems to take all their work and put them together into this whole picture. I don't know, there's just something about it that doesn't look as clean as it's supposed to, and it's more the machines than the people that was holding all this back. I won't say that this is WAG's best looking picture, and there might be a few visual choices that some may find questionable, but the animation overall still has a nice and strong look to it that gives audiences a new and appealing style to present the DC universe. The characters. Before getting into the characters themselves, I have to talk about the voice acting because it is one of the movie's biggest selling points. Yes, this is one of those animated features that includes a massive list of recognizable celebrities doing the voice of all these cartoon characters. There may be some that will think that it makes the film feel manufactured and is just using the big names to sell tickets, but in this case, it's actually an asset. I'd even go as far and say that it's the best thing about the movie other than the animation. Sure, they had to work with a weak script and sometimes their acting isn't enough to salvage what they were given, but the biggest reason why these characters have any charisma and likability is thanks to these actors. There are some like Dwayne Johnson and Kate McKinnon that deliver the same kind of performance you'd expect out of them. But some of the standout stars for me include John Krasinski as Superman, who gave a more relatable touch to Kent, and Kevin Hart as Ace, who is a lot more tame compared to his energetic roles like Snowball in The Secret Life of Pets, but he can do a great job being the reasonable and level-headed straight man, even in a family-friendly cartoon like this.
You know what they say about dogs, don't you?
Never feed us chocolate.
We love unconditionally.
However, as the script keeps itself obvious and simple so that even the smallest child could understand, the same applies to how the characters were crafted. Crypto is the typical pet protagonist who has a strong bond with his owner. The relationship can make him a bit strong-headed, and it may have been rocky when Lois came to the picture, but deep down, Superman is his best friend and would do anything to be along his side, even when he lost all his powers. Joining his adventure is his new team that consists of PB, the nerdy pig with self-esteem issues who knows a lot about the Justice League, Chip, the neurotic squirrel, Merton, the old turtle who's honestly the funniest character with how she swears like a sailor, and Ace, the tough dog who is selfless to a fault. He would even lie to his friends for the sake of keeping their hopes up, but that little aspect never went anywhere. Going into the people, this Superman looks more into his human side, and I don't mean when he's Clark Kent. He has a strong love for his lifelong friend Crypto, whom together are like a dynamic duo when they bond by saving Metropolis together. However, now that he's ready to propose to Lois, his priorities have shifted and doesn't see the complex situation he's in when he's stuck between his girl and his dog. As for the rest of the Justice League, they're like Clark's teammates who help him stop the bad guys and show off their cool powers. The only other one who stands out from the team is Batman, since he's more like a parody of how brooding he always is.
Squeezy Bruce!
Fetch! That better be a licensed toy or I will freak out.
And then there's the villain of the film, Lulu, who is basically the cliched evil mastermind who wants to take over the world. Other than that, she's also a major fangirl of Lex Luthor, and always dreamed of the day that she could be reunited with him and become his villainous sidekick. As they are written, there's not a whole lot worth remembering about these characters. They're generally typical tropes with little room to expand their personalities. Thankfully, they did have a strong voice cast that helped make these versions of the DC characters more fun and even a bit charming. I wouldn't really call this one super, but considering how WAG previously poorly handled other existing IPs, it is a step up to say that this turned out to be okay. DC League of Super Pets can be best described as the Justice League for children, aimed to give younger audiences their first introduction to superhero movies. When looking at it as a feature itself, the writing left a lot to be desired with a predictable story, simple and forgettable characters, and mostly weak comedy. But it is able to supply a sufficient amount of entertainment with some good animation, engagingly creative action, a solid cast of talented actors, and a touching heart that presents the power of friendship and the role that pets play in our lives. I'm honestly not sure if this is worth it for older audiences to go out of their way to watch this outside of their homes, but for kids who like superheroes but are still too young to watch the MCU or the live-action DC films, then this would be perfect for them. Just like how subscribing to my channel would be perfect for you so that you could catch up with all the latest animated reviews like this one. Sure, I've seen better DC movies and I've seen better animated DC movies, but this is not a DC movie meant for me. This is a DC movie for kids. And in this age where those films are trying to be so edgy and mature, why not give the little ones a Justice League of their own? And if the Super Pets can do just that, then they can prove why the League needs some animals in their team.
Where the am I? Huh?